How are you guys doing today? My name is Shenya from Jesus Center, and I want to share a sermon for June 30th. So last week we finished 2 Timothy. So we've learned 1 Timothy and 2 Timothy. Now we're moving into Titus. So please read Titus chapter 1, verse 1 for today's sermon. Are you guys ready? So the theme is the epistle to Titus. The epistle to Titus. So one day, a wife asks her husband, "How would you like your eggs? Sunny side or scrambled?" Then the husband said, "Scrambled." So when the wife broke an eggs, her husband came right next to her and says, "Be careful, it's very hot. Just let it cook for a while, and while later, you should mix up. Don't burn or overcook. Don't pay attention to anything else, just focus. Don't forget the salt and don't forget some black peppers. You need to prepare the plate before it's done. When you put eggs after you're done, be careful not to burn yourself." The wife said, "Stop it. What do you want to say? I know what I should do. I'm not like a little kid." Then the husband said, "I just want you to feel how I feel when I'm driving." Well, this wife tells him many things when he drives, so he wants her to know how he feels. Let us think how people feel before we say some stuff. It's very important to think from the side of the other person. Now we continue to learn from Paul's letter. We learn from the book of Titus, the epistle of Titus. That Paul was probably the kind of person who always think on the side of others. And Paul always thought of how people feel and what their needs were. Like they need encouragement or prayers or strategies. And Titus was one of the disciples of Paul, and like Paul encouraged and gave wisdom and solutions to Timothy, and Paul gave anything that Titus needed. So firstly, let us learn who Titus was. The Titus was a Greek who accepted the gospel of Jesus Christ through Paul. He does not appear in Acts, the book of Acts, but he appears many times in the Paul's letters. And he was a fellow worker of Paul. In other words, he was a man who passionately worked for God after coming to know Jesus. And he was evangelizing with Paul. 2 Corinthians 8:23 said, "As for Titus, he is my partner and co-worker among you. As for our brothers, they are representatives of the churches and an honor to Christ." And what is obviously known is that he was a person who was sent by Paul to carry the letters to Corinthians. That's the 2 Corinthians. And he was also a person who worked hard to collect donations for a Jerusalem church, which was the center of the early church at that time. So Titus was a trusted worker for Paul. This letter was written between 2 Timothy and 1 Timothy and 2 Timothy. And Paul wrote 1 Timothy in Roman prison, but after that Paul was released from prison and visited the churches. At that time, the churches in Crete had problems. In order to deal with problems, Paul wrote this letter to Titus. Titus was a younger minister like Timothy. So what was the problem in Crete? Crete is an island, still exists today. It is currently the largest island in Greece. Crete Island is located in the Mediterranean Sea, south of Italy and Turkey, and has a warm climate. In other words, it was very comfortable for humans, to live there. You can live a life even you're a little lazy. People easily could get something to eat from the sea and mountains. So people could survive without working for living. So there's a word in Rome. It says kritizo, which means you are a person like in Crete. That meant selfish and full of greed. So back then, if people said to you that you are a kritizo, which means you are a lazy person and selfish person, that was their culture in Crete. Then there were a lot of Christians in Crete, and they were walking with Christ, but some people went back to their bad habit, or even though they believed Jesus, they didn't grow at all. Also, heresies and false teachings were common to their churches, causing confusion in their churches. When Paul heard about these situations, he felt that this was a critical situation. The churches were established, but they were not growing. So he sent his advice and encouragement to Titus in this letter. Also, this letter was written for people in Crete. So what Paul said in the beginning is, Paul said that I am a servant of God. That's what verse 1 said. The verse 1, Paul said, Paul, a servant of God and apostle of Jesus Christ, further the faith of God's elect and their knowledge of the truth that leads to godliness. A servant in Greek is doulos, which also means slave. There were slaves in the Roman Empire. In fact, in some cases, those who were slightly poor were happier living as slaves in the home of wealthy master. So it depends on who master would change slaves' lives. The most important thing for slave was what kind of master they would serve. If they serve a rough and mean master, they would have a hard life. If they serve a good and loving master, they would have a great life. Paul said, I am a slave of God. He said this with joy. There are two things that Paul wanted to say as he said, I am a slave of God. One is that Paul is reminding that we all have a great master. This master is a great God who created this heaven and earth. He is a wonderful master and who loves us unconditionally, and he always provides our needs. That's the one thing. And one more thing is, I am a slave of God, so I'm giving myself 100% and serving my wonderful master 100%. So I seek whatever my master wants me to do. That's all I want to do. That's what Paul wanted to bring in this letter first. Well, David said in Psalm 23, verse 1, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. If I walk with God, if I serve God, I lack nothing. I get anything I need in my life. That's David said. So Paul first told the people in Crete that I serve God, who you know, with all my heart And he also said, come back to your master again because he is a great master. As we serve, we would be led to the best way in our lives. When we see here today, we should come back to the origin of our faith and see our God as a great master. If we put God as our master, he leads us the best way, and he protects us anything happens in our lives, and he provides any time we need. We should follow our master first. We should seek our master first. Can I hear amen? And I want to share the story of a missionary in Philippines. Her name is Joanne Shetler. And she was born and raised in the United States. And since she was a child, she had a big dream, which was going to different countries to tell the gospel. But she was born in the middle part of the States. She had never seen any foreigners. But she just prayed to see what God has for her. After she went to the university, she had a heart for people in Philippines. But anytime she shared her visions, people made fun of her because she had never seen people there, and she doesn't speak their language either. But God answered her prayer. Joanne's close friend had the same vision to go to Philippines to tell the gospel. They both saved money to go to Philippines, and some people helped them too. Finally, they arrived Philippines, and they chose a countryside for the mission field. So they rode a bus for hours and hours. Then they got one village, and they felt peace about staying there. They got a place called Balangao. When they arrived, none of Caucasian entered the region. There were actually the headcutters, and also there were a lot of devil worshippers. So if something happened to them, these ladies would have been killed in any reasons. But that ladies were bold and prayed to God that, God, this is a situation we're facing. That situation is hard, but you're always with us. And I believe that, Lord, you sent us here for the reason. They prayed every single day, and they were searching how they do their ministry there. As they prayed every day and they waited for God's timing, and then a miracle happened. The leader of the village came to them and said, "This is what was told to me in my dream. Believe what these ladies say. Their words are as hard as rock." And the leader believed Jesus. After the leader believed God, a revival broke out in that village. Many people believed in God, and the headcutters were saved and no longer attacked humans, and even the devil worshippers believed in Jesus. And people cooperate to translate the Bible in their language. Then missionaries were sent from that village finally. Who thought of happening these things before? No one. But as these ladies trusted God, God moved. Matthew 6:33 says, "But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well." When you seek God first, and everything else will be provided, because our God is a great God. Amen. So let us remember that we serve such a great God, and as we are with him, he protects us, he leads us, he provides anything we need. Amen. So these are the words for this week. Thank you for listening. And we're going to have English service in the beginning of July. So we'll see you there. God bless. Peace out.